This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg.
You have lots of questions about your own life and this really complex world around you. I'm Sarocha Coelho. I'm the host of the new live call-in show, Just Asking. I take your questions about what's in the news or your finances, health, even your relationships, and then throw them to an expert. Just Asking. Let's figure it out together.
Just Asking with Sarocha Coelho. Live Saturday afternoon at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific, and on CBC Listen.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show. Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the CBC Listen app for free and follow.
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at 9 degrees with mostly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Winnipeg police are showing off piles of drugs, millions of dollars in cash, jewelry, and guns after an extensive investigation into organized crime. Those items came to the city by plane, rail, and specially modified cars. So far, 14 people have been arrested and charged in connection to drug busts on March 6th in Winnipeg, Vancouver, and Toronto. 9 of those people are from Winnipeg. Inspector Eldon Hall says their investigation started in March of 2022 when a large quantity of cash was discovered at Richardson International Airport. Then, last May, the organized crime unit targeted a large-scale, high-level intern-provincial drug network. Hall says the nature of gangs in the city has changed.
10 or 15 years ago, street gangs are just street gangs, and they were kind of operating in their own neighborhoods, but they're now heavily influenced by organized crime. Organized crime provides the drugs, the money, and the handguns, and results in the violence you see on the street right now. That's how organized crime makes their money. Also seized a submachine gun and a Rolls Royce, valued at $450,000. The province says all of its first-year physician residency positions have been matched with medical school graduates. That includes the 17 new positions added this year. In total, there are 173 positions, which includes 48 training seats for family physicians in rural and northern regions. Dr. Peter Nickerson of the U of M says to fill all the seats is an accomplishment and will help unserved communities.
As 5 of our Indigenous graduates matched to our Northern Family Medicine training program, allowing them to directly serve Indigenous communities in Manitoba. That day, our Indigenous elders and the community were celebrating with these graduates. In fact, I think they had the biggest party on campus.
Nickerson says the increase will help rebuild the physician workforce in the province. A 26-year-old man has been arrested after a baby was rescued by an RCMP police dog. It happened on April 18th in Camperville. Winnipeg says RCMP were checking on a home after hearing a man threaten the people inside with a firearm. He then ran off with a baby. RCMP found the vehicle he was in a short time later. That's when they saw the suspect take the infant and run into the bush. The child was not dressed for cold weather. Police dog Maruk tracked the suspect through a heavily treed area for 2 kilometers and found the two. The baby was not hurt. The man faces a list of charges, including uttering threats and flight from a peace officer. Ahead of today's question period, Conservative MPs continue to blame Speaker Greg Fergus for yesterday's uproar in the Federal House of Commons.
Should Greg Fergus stay on as Speaker?
He should resign.
Several months ago, he lost the confidence of the opposition then. He certainly lost it yesterday.
He should resign. He's a disgrace.
I never did have confidence in this speaker.
What's going to happen to today?
He's too liberal partisan.
That's the Conservative caucus arriving on the Hill this morning. Party leader Pierre Poilievre was removed from the House yesterday after refusing to withdraw what the Speaker considered to be unparliamentary language. Poilievre left the House, and in protest, the Conservative caucus walked out with him. The party insists Poilievre was being censored. Liberal House leader Steve McKinnon says that position is similar to what Americans hear from supporters of Donald Trump. And across the United States, the struggle to contain the chaos on university grounds is growing. Anti-war protesters and police battled on the University of Wisconsin in Madison campus today. Officers had moved in to take down an encampment. At least 12 people were arrested. Meanwhile, classes have been canceled at UCLA after what the school is calling a shocking night of violence.
Watch out! Watch out!
New York's mayor is defending the actions of his police. They arrested around 300 people overnight at Columbia University and City College. Many had barricaded inside a Columbia campus building. Eric Adams says students are being influenced by professional agitators. A Montreal judge has rejected a request for an emergency injunction to disband the protest at McGill University. The tent city protest is now in its 5th day. Meanwhile, 20 tents were erected on the grounds of the University of Ottawa this morning. It's an escalation from the sit-in style protests pro-Palestinian demonstrators were holding earlier this week. They say the change is in response to the school being unwilling to meet with them. Police say they're monitoring the situation, but have not received a request from the school to intervene. The president of El Salvador has ordered a corruption investigation into every member of his government, including himself.
Hay algo que yo sí le tengo miedo, y es a dejar un mal legado.
Nayib Bukele told the members of his cabinet he was afraid of leaving a bad legacy and pointing to past presidents who had been tainted by actions of their corrupt officials. And finally, Winnipeg Blue Bomber Hall of Famer Lyle Bauer has died. Family of the former Winnipeg Blue Bomber player, president, and CEO made the announcement yesterday. Bauer was an offensive lineman with the Bombers from 1982 to 1991. He won 3 Grey Cups. Bauer became president of the team in 2000 until 2009 when he left to join the Stampeders. He created the Never Alone Cancer Foundation after his battle with cancer in 2004. Lyle Bauer was 65 years old. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. We're talking all things environmental today. A huge international conference looking to tackle plastic pollution has just wrapped up in Ottawa as these countries, companies, and ecologists work to wrestle out an agreement on what to do about it. We're going to go grassroots today and just ask you, how can we use and discard less plastic? Join us for our calling conversation after 12:30. The head of a national nonprofit called Clean Farms Incorporated was a presenter at that big Ottawa conference. We're going to talk to that person and hear about efforts to make it easier for Manitoba farmers to recycle a little later in the show. But we begin with a lawsuit over raw sewage in the Red River. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, in support of Chief Gordon Blue Sky and 7 First Nations, has issued a statement of claim regarding a big recent Red River sewage leak. The lawsuit was filed yesterday. It names all 3 levels of government: city, province, feds. Leaders of the First Nations announced details of this lawsuit just last hour. Here's Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kathy Merrick.
As First Nation people, and as to our teachings, we protect the water. And unfortunately, at this time, that this has to happen. And it's been happening. It's just nobody has ever said anything in terms of the contamination of our systems here in Manitoba. And we know historically that further up north and in terms of the basin of Lake Winnipeg, how that has been impacted. So I guess the question is, what are we going to do about it? And that it's not enough to apologize. We've heard apologies left and right when it comes to our people. So that the time for apologies is over, and that what we are asking for is not an apology. What we're asking for today and what we expect is action from the city, from the province, as well as from the federal government. And words only mean so much. The real proof is the work that you do, or in this case, don't do, to safeguard Manitoba's waters And it's very important that we be able to do that because the Manitoba waters, because we know these systems are connected throughout Manitoba. And we know the contamination that happens here in the city will reach the shores of First Nations across this province. We all know that. The government knows that. So I don't understand why they would continuously allow it to happen. And that if something happened like that in Shoal Lake, where we get our water from, if that happened there and it came to the city here, what would be done? So that's the question that I leave the governments as to what they're planning on doing to help our First Nations that are affected. It's important because the inherent right of First Nations to self-determination includes jurisdiction in relation to water, source water, drinking water, wastewater, and related infrastructure under First Nation lands. So keep in mind they run through our lands and they run through our historically our lands that have been there for forever. So in neglecting the decades of advocacy and lobbying from First Nations leadership to safeguard the province water supply, the decision makers at every government level are actively disrupting our inherent and treaty rights. That is not right, and it cannot continue. It's 2024. First Nations should not have to beg to see the life-altering impacts of the negligence of this government.
My name is Cindy Woodhouse, and I am the National Chief for the Assembly of First Nations. I would also like to acknowledge Treaty 1 territory on whose lands we are on. Water plays an important role in every aspect of First Nations life. We have a unique relationship with water, and our elders remind us of the importance of this precious, precious resource. The Red River is an example of this sacred waterway that holds cultural and significance for our people here in Treaty 1 territory. The recent leak of millions of liters of untreated sewage into the Red River is a violation against our land, our resources, and our culture. Water is life, and protecting our waterways is essential. The health of the Red River affects everyone in our community, humans and wildlife alike, including Canadians, Manitobans, First Nations people. The Assembly of First Nations supports the Manitoba Chiefs as we call for justice in this matter. We are deeply concerned about the environmental impacts of the sewage leak into the Red River. The spill poses serious risks to our ecosystem and public health. We urge the city, the province, and federal governments to work collaboratively with First Nations to resolve this issue. It is essential that we take concrete action, including providing the necessary funding and long-term support to protect our waterways and ensure that health of our rivers and our communities.
My name is Garrison Sati, Grand Chief of the MKO Nations, and we are here to stand in solidarity with the 8 nations that are filing this lawsuit. And we will support them and stand with them because we believe that this injustice that is being committed to our people and the pollution of waters is unethical. And it is inconceivable in 2024 that we still have to be subject to such negligence by people around us that do not view the water as sacred, that they do not view the water as the source of life that has sustained our people for so long. So we're here once again, stewards and protectors of the land. We are forced to stand up in solidarity with each other, because if we don't stand up, nobody else will. But we're here to stand together to say that this must stop, this must not continue, and this must not happen again. This is unacceptable that our people should be subject to polluted waters. Our waters are sacred. They've protected us and kept us and healed us. But now the water is being contaminated and it's going to make our people sick. But we will say no more. No more. Whoever it is that is doing this, they're going to be stopped. Because we're standing here as the stewards of this land. This must not happen again.
That was MKO Grand Chief Garrison Settee. We also heard from National Chief of AFN, Cindy Woodhouse, and AMC Grand Chief Kathy Merrick. They were speaking to the media last hour. The leak they're talking about happened in February. It released 230 million liters of sewage into the Red River.
Your local news at your fingertips.
CBC News has a local news app made for your phone or tablet.
So don't waste time scrolling for the local stories you want. Just download the app to get the information that matters to you when it happens.
And how you want it.
Another way to get your local news. The CBC News app. Download it today.
It is 12:15 and you're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and absolutely everywhere on your CBC Listen app or on YouTube. Hello to everyone watching on YouTube. Today we're talking about plastic. We want you to think globally, act locally. We want to know what you are doing to eliminate plastic waste. How can we all use and discard less plastic? That is our call-in question today. We'll begin that just after 12:30. In a moment, we're going to take that think globally, act locally idea and ask a man who was just at the big UN conference on tackling plastic pollution what more Manitoba can do to help eliminate plastic farm waste. Interesting conversation coming up in just a couple of minutes. Taking a quick look at our weather right now. Of course, I've lost that page of weather, but we've got a mix of cloud and some sprinkles of rain in our province today. We have also got Riley Lachuk covering the whole thing, so luckily he won't lose his web page that was showing him current conditions. He will be here with all your weather information right after the 12:30 news. Windows. All those different tabs I can click on. I wanted to start my Zoom meeting and somehow I lost Environment and Climate Change Canada's page. Sorry about that, folks. But luckily I was able to connect with our next guest. Representatives from 176 countries are trying to draft an international treaty on how to get plastic pollution under control. That's what the conference that ended yesterday in Ottawa was all about. The Ottawa negotiations were the second to last meeting of the United Nations Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee for Plastics. Wow. A fifth and final meeting is set for South Korea at the end of November. That's when they're supposed to get a treaty ready. That's a big job. Barry Friesen was a presenter at the conference in Ottawa. He is executive director for a national nonprofit called Clean Farms Incorporated. It works to make plastic recycling easier for Canadian farmers, and he joins us now by Zoom. Thanks for being with us, Barry.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon.
So please paint a picture for us. How much plastic waste do Canadian farms produce?
Well, we've done our research, and in Canada, there's about 62,000 tons of plastic being used in agriculture from coast to coast. Now, what does the 62,000 tons mean? If we fully loaded 53-foot transfer trailers, that would be 2,800 trailers every year. And if you parked them with a cab on end to end, that would stretch almost 60 kilometers long. That's a lot of plastic being used all at once. And the reality is most of it is used only once. Now, we don't call these single-use plastics if we can collect and recycle them, because we want to keep those in the environment and keep them or keep them from being littered in the environment and keep them in our economy and being used over and over again. And that's really the goal of Clean Farms.
So, first of all, where does all that plastic come from?
Well, it comes from, certainly the manufacturers make it, and it's used in many different forms. We have container programs to hold farm crop protection products, fertilizers, maybe bale and silage wrap, twine, netting, grain bags. Grain bags are used quite widely throughout the prairies to store grains and oil seeds. And there's all kinds of different things. If you drive by a greenhouse, most greenhouses are covered in plastic, and that plastic gets replaced on average every 4 years. So what do we do with that plastic? And that's the goal of Clean Farms, to try and collect that material, have it recycled, and made right back into new products. And the holy grail in our industry is to make the same product out of the used one. So take that used plastic, shred it up, wash it, repelletize it, make it right back into the same thing. And that's our ultimate goal.
Which may or may not be possible. I mean, there is a limited lifespan to things that we can recycle, and limited amount of time that we can recycle them, which is why some people would love to see plastics eliminated altogether.
Yeah, yes, you could say that, but the reality is, again, we've done a fair bit of research. Recently, we made new containers out of old containers, and we used 30% recycled content in them. And our research shows that we can just continue to do that. With 30% recycled content, it can, eventually it gets consumed. Things do break down over time. And but the reality is it's a great end use of the product. And of course, there's new products we can make out of it as well.
And if it's not recycled, as it stands now, if plastic waste from farms isn't collected and recycled, what happens to it?
Well, the reality is it's supposed to go in the landfill. Sometimes it gets stored for some time in the future. Plastic, even though it can last hundreds and hundreds of years on its own, does break down and eventually will break down right on the farm if it's not properly stored and become microplastics. And that's one of the other big things that was discussed at the conference last week, is the fact that this isn't just a large plastic problem. This is a little teeny tiny plastic problem, because this material breaks down and all rivers lead to the ocean. And now we're discovering that there's microplastics everywhere, even in our human bodies.
Absolutely. It's such a huge issue. I know it is possible that there are farmers out there who might just burn it, because that's traditionally what they've done with waste, with garbage. What happens when you burn plastic?
Well, first of all, I got to say that I highly recommend do not burn it, because when you burn plastics is made from petroleum. And when you burn it in the open air like that, which had been a traditional plastic in the past, that it releases a lot of toxic chemicals, both in the air and on the land. And highly recommended not to do it. Just in dioxins, furans, all these nasty things that we hear about on the news. And these are things that you do not want to breathe in, you do not want to drink, you do not want to eat it. And burning is the worst case scenario for this material. Storing it or throwing in the landfill is the only other option if there are no recycling options for it.
Okay, so let's talk about those recycling options, because that seems to be our best option. Manitoba actually mandates that businesses supplying agricultural products that create plastic waste operate or support a program to deal with it. Mm-hmm. How does that regulation stack up against what our neighboring provinces do, the other prairie provinces?
Yeah, and the reality is Manitoba is a bit of a leader here in the fact that they have mandated this requirement, so that it's a concept called extended producer responsibility, or EPR for short, where a manufacturer or first seller into an area has to take responsibility at the end of its life. And we have a great program in Manitoba to collect pesticide and fertilizer containers, to get seed and pesticide bags, to collect the bulk containers as well as grain bags and twine. And we're going to be moving to the rest of the agriculture plastics, like bale and silage wrap and netting and the like, and even those greenhouse plastics. To be able to do that, it would be really good to work together with Saskatchewan and Alberta, the three prairie provinces working together, even the Peace River region of BC, all using a lot of the same materials. And that's where you go. And you asked, how does Manitoba stack up? Well, Manitoba's ahead. Saskatchewan does have an EPR regulation, but it's only on grain bags only. And so we've been working with all three provinces, including 4 provinces, including BC, to see if we can work together and have one rule for all that works together. It's going to be provincially based, but if everybody moves together at the same time, we have a much better option. And one of the other benefits of that is the more that we have together, the better option we have in recycling, because recyclers and recycling operations are very expensive to build and operate, and they like to have minimum volumes. And we have enough minimum volume, particularly on grain bags, if all three work together.
So if we can get everybody on board, the other provinces, to tighten their regulations too, you can collect enough stuff to build an economy of scale that we could get it recycled.
You bet. And there's recyclers across the prairies that are working, and a lot of our contractors, and we have contractors in all three prairie provinces. And eventually we'd like to do a whole lot more and actually include that in the manufacture of new products. Those that make these products in the first place really want to do it. And I think the good thing, there was a lot of debate about what went on at this INC, this negotiating committee. But one thing that almost everybody agrees on, all the countries, is that EPR is one of the great things to move forward on. And so we're looking forward to that.
Barry Friesen, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Barry Friesen is executive director of a national nonprofit called Clean Farms Incorporated. It creates recycling programs for Canadian farmers and the plastics they use.
I'm Angeline Terueo, host of The Block. Step into a 2-hour experience that feels like you're laid back, kicking it with a friend who also happens to be a music head. Always keeping it interesting. Listening to new songs you love and classics that transport you right back to your life's biggest moments. The Block, weeknights starting at 7:30 in Newfoundland on CBC Music and anytime on CBC Listen.
Brandon Roots musician Mitchell McCoons has a new album out called Lady Boots. Here's a song from it. It's called What Could Be.
Wish we were sharing this apartment instead of waking up alone. Wish I could cook you dinner from a recipe on my phone. Wish I tried harder to make you stay. 'Cause it's been a hard one since you went away. Now you're probably drinking coffee, but you won't wash the cup. In 10 minutes you'll be back asleep, let the dishes pile up. Then you wake up again, realize you're late for something. Wish I didn't miss those little things. Something in the way you stole the covers makes me feel selfish, 'cause I got them on my own. Hoping someday it makes you wonder what could have been, what could be. No, it ain't too late to walk that road some of our friends don't even know. Tell the ones who did we took our time and space. But I know how it goes, and please don't hesitate to let me know when I'm being replaced. selfish, 'cause I got them on my own. Hoping someday it makes you wonder what could have been, what could.
What Could Be. That's the song from Mitchell McCoons of Brandon. Still ahead on Radio Noon, we've got our call-in conversation. We're going to open our phone lines in just seconds. The number to call, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you. How can we use and discard less plastic? 204-780-0893 or 1-800-268-5483. Right now, it's time for your 12:30 news.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at 9 degrees with mostly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon, I'm Matt Humphrey. We're learning more about a major drug bust. Winnipeg, BC, and Ontario police seized millions of dollars in drugs, cash, cars, jewelry, and guns. Inspector Elton Hall says it took down high-level players in organized crime across several provinces. He says it started when a large amount of cash was discovered at Richardson International Airport 2 years ago. Then, last May, the organized crime unit began investigating a criminal network, bringing drugs and guns into Winnipeg by car, rail, and air.
And in Winnipeg, and what we're seeing here is we have an influx of gangs, guns, and drugs coming through the city, something we've really noticed in the last 2 years, which also includes human and sex trafficking and money laundering. We're just centralized. We have one of the biggest land ports being established here.
Hall says among the seized items is a submachine gun and a $450,000 Rolls Royce. 14 people have been charged, including 9 in Winnipeg. He says more people may face charges in the future. This is National Physicians Day, and the University of Manitoba and the province are celebrating. Advanced Education Minister Renee Cable says all the new first-year residency positions have been filled, including more training seats for family physicians. This year, there are 17 more positions than last year, thanks to an increase in government funding. And Cable says everyone has been matched to a medical graduate.
This year, there are 72 more training seats for family physicians, including 48 in rural and northern communities. And for folks who are from those communities, that's a real game changer. This shows our focus and our commitment to ensuring that we're not only staffed up here in Winnipeg, but across the province.
Dr. Peter Nickerson at the U of M says 5 Indigenous graduates have also been matched to the Northern Family Medicine Training Program, which will directly serve Indigenous communities in the province. And finally, Winnipeg Blue Bomber Hall of Famer Lyle Bauer has died. Family of the former player, president, and CEO made the announcement yesterday. Bauer was an offensive lineman with the Bombers from 1982 to 1991. He won 3 Grey Cups in 84, 88, and in 1990. Bauer became president and CEO of the team in 2000 until 2009, when he left to go to the Calgary Stampeders. He created the Never Alone Cancer Foundation after his battle with cancer in 2004. Lyle Bauer was 65. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, you can head over to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Matt Humphrey.
Back soon.
Riley Lachuk joins us now. How you doing, Riley?
Smelled like rain this morning on my walk into work.
What a big sigh. Did you hear that big sigh? The smell of rain isn't
It was
a bad
like
thing,
it was not
is
a sigh. It was more like a breath of fresh air.
Oh, was it really? Because it
yes.
sounded like a sigh. Okay. Well, they say, April showers bring
Yes.
May flowers.
It did smell very fresh on my walk into work, and it was really nice to just smell the rain on the way in.
So it is May now. Those
Yes.
May flowers should start popping any moment now.
Yeah,
maybe.
A couple
maybe
weeks
not.
or so.
Yeah, exactly. Let's look at April.
Yeah, April, the month that was, yes, another above seasonal month in terms of temperature here in southern Manitoba, at least. Looking at some of the data that I've compiled, at least 20 days above seasonal for this time of the year. A couple days in the 20s, 24.3 was the warmest day we saw, which was on the 25th of April. So just last week, 10 days below normal. We ended the month on a below normal note. Otherwise, kind of a mixed bag. Precipitation-wise, we're actually fairly close to the normal in terms of precipitation, thanks to some of that April shower activity that we saw across the province over the last few weeks or so. So we were doing pretty good precipitation-wise. Could always use more, though.
Absolutely.
So, and that's what we've got in the forecast.
Yay!
As we segue in to the next few days here. Yes, some scattered showers across southern Manitoba today. Even satellite and radar picking up some snow at the moment in some of the higher elevations, especially around the Duck and the Riding Mountains, indicating that some of this rain that we see here in the Red River Valley possibly falling as some wet snow or some light flurries through the Duck and the Riding Mountain region. Of course, temperature dependent where you are, but the possibility is there, especially as we head through the next couple of days, that we could see a few snowflakes across southern Manitoba. Hard to think that we're saying that in May, but we do need the precipitation, so we'll take it in any form that we can get it. As we head through the rest of the day today, expect a mainly cloudy day for southern Manitoba, some sunny breaks even through the afternoon. We're kind of in between a couple of areas of instability here. So as we get into the overnight period tonight, into tomorrow is when we see that next sort of round of precipitation moving into southern Manitoba. Northern Manitoba still dealing with some light snow first thing in the morning, but at least here in Winnipeg and through much of the Red River Valley, we'll see rain start to move in as we get, say, into that 8, 9 o'clock hour tomorrow morning, into the Winnipeg area around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and continuing as we get through the day. So tomorrow, pretty rainy day. Friday's looking like a pretty rainy day as well. Even could see, especially the further north you go, a few flurries first thing in the morning Friday as temperatures dip close to or below the freezing mark. So we'll keep our eye on that. Otherwise, we're looking at rain continuing right until Saturday morning before things start to clear again. So taking us out 24 or another 12 hours or so, I guess, in terms of rainfall accumulation first, maybe another few millimeters through the Dauphin Swan River region. We're pretty much done with it here in the Red River Valley and through much of the Interlake. But as we get into the next couple of days, taking us out to Friday lunchtime, another 10 to 15 millimeters coming through much of southern Manitoba. And if some of this does fall as snow, especially in northern parts of the province, Swan River, the Pas, Flin Flon, maybe a couple of centimeters. Much of this, though, keep in mind, melting on contact with temperatures, really hovering around that 0 mark. So today, Dauphin looking at a high of 7. We're looking at a high of 14 in both Brandon and Winnipeg. Brandon, Melita, Verdun, most likely to see some sunny breaks as we head through the afternoon hours. Mainly cloudy through Emerson, Sprague, Pinawa, but a chance we could see some scattered showers still through the afternoon today. 12 for tomorrow. 11 for Friday. Chance of some scattered showers still Saturday morning at 12 degrees. And then, Janet, back up to 19 and 18 for Sunday and Monday.
That's the amazing thing, hey? It rebounds so quickly.
Yes, especially when you get spring and the daytime heating. And
again? We'll take it. Oh, can I say yay again?
Yeah, you can say yay
for
again.
showers, yay for 18.
Showers and then some sunny conditions, perfect for growing the grass.
There you go.
So there's an upside.
There's always an upside. Riley Lachuk, thank you so much.
No problem.
Riley's covering weather for us today for Up to Speed. That's 3 to 6 p.m. with Faith Fundal. And, of course, on television as well tonight, 6 to 7, which you can watch anytime you want to on our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. Hello to everyone watching there. Get your comments in because it's time for our call-in conversation. So you can leave your comments on YouTube or you can call us now, 204-780-0893. We're talking about plastic waste. How can we use and discard less plastic? If you want to call toll-free, it's 1-800-268-5483. Our guest today has strong opinions on this, and I suspect a lot of other things. I've only really met him, yesterday by phone, but I can also already tell that he's likely to be a frequent visitor to Radio Noon, if he's willing to do it. Joe Ackerman runs the Sustainability and Action Facility at the University of Manitoba. He joins us now by Zoom. Hi, Joe.
Oh, good afternoon.
Are you willing to be a frequent visitor to Radio Noon, or do you want to wait and hold judgment until after?
History.
Always? Okay. Well. Okay. All right, then. You can take that back at the end of the show if you find this too taxing. You do seem to be a very interesting human. Tell us a bit about your background.
Well, I don't know. I'm sort of a jack of all trades. I've here at the university, the uh, the women's social engineering group wants me to come and show them how to make roses and put them on cupcakes tomorrow. So, so aside from doing hard science and taking apart things and showing students how the world goes around, I can decorate cakes too. So
Okay, sold. You're in. You do have a science background, though. Tell us about
I
that.
yes, I have a PhD in nutrients. I'm a phosphorus expert. Um, I know just a little bit too much about pig manure. There is a limit. You can learn too much.
Really?
But I've recently gotten interested in recycling and sort of like the conundrum of where does it all go and can I believe what I'm being told about it? So I've specifically delved into plastic recycling because I have a chemistry background and plastic is it's a difficult to recycle material. So it has a lot of challenges.
204-780-0893. What questions do you have for Joe about recycling? And how do you cut down on plastic waste? What's your idea for the rest of us? How can we use and discard less plastic? 204-780-0893. Toll free 1-800-268-5483. Plastic is not one thing. That's the thing I find interesting. Look at, as I reach for my prop here, you don't need props for radio usually, but for YouTube here, okay, this hand sanitizer bottle that I'm holding up, I'm not sure that this type of plastic that shows that is the lid is the same kind of plastic that is the body of the bottle. So how does that complicate recycling, Joe?
Well, you're absolutely right. Usually the cap is made of polyethylene, and they use that because it's got a little bit of flex to it. Whereas the bottle itself, they don't want to have flex. You want it to be stiffer material, and you want it to be clear. And so that's usually PET, sometimes polypropylene. And so pop bottles are the same. PET is what is used to make the most of the bottle, and the cap is always polyethylene. So if you grind those up and mix them together and melt them, you no longer have the same qualities of either material. You have sort of a muddy mix of both of them, which it's not really clear, and it's not really flexible, and it's not really stiff. It's just kind of like mud. And then that gets expanded. Every time you add a new kind of polymer in there, you get something that's extra flexible and something that's extra stiff. You just get very low quality product at the end.
And is that how do you sell that low quality product? Somebody wants it?
No. Basically, it's good for making, apparently people make railway ties out of that sort of mixed bag of plastic. You put some sort of fiber in there to bind it all together, and they last for 50 years, which is a great use for it. But it's basically it's the kind of lowest grade product you can make. But then also they do garden furniture. People make like paving stones, things like that, out of this kind of mixed plastic.
Okay. I have those chairs. I know those garden stones, those patio stones. I can get behind that. Victoria, thanks for calling Radio Noon. How are you today?
Hello. Oh, I'm very well, thank you. And you?
I'm great. This is going to be an interesting conversation. What would you like to say?
I just think the limitations in Manitoba as far as what we can recycle are just kind of that's what I believe is holding us back. You look at programs that they have in Alberta or BC, and just the range of different plastics that they take is so much more than what we do. And it's been on my mind, and I know quite a few of my friends of mine for a long time that we really need to expand how many types of plastics and, recyclable materials that we could put in our bin.
Can you think of a particular example, like, I'm not an ice cream container, but of some specific thing that you could have recycled in Alberta or BC you can't do here?
Sure. So in Manitoba, we don't take clamshells, like any type of plastic clamshells. So like berry clamshells or like the baking clamshells that they have at like Costco or Superstore or whatever. Like we don't take that in Manitoba. And that's a huge part of everybody's grocery shopping, I think.
So forgive me, I'm showing my ignorance here. I thought we did take those. Joe, we don't? As far as you know?
You?
Yeah, you.
I can't, I'm not definitive. I'm not sure what's up to speed here. I know that some places have taken them, like I know Alberta took them for a long time and stored them because the price was too low. And then at some point, their storage costs were so great, they decided to just cart them all to the dump.
Oh, no.
And that's plastic is sort of a liability when it's stored because you have a fire hazard and you have whatever kinds of, sort of footprint, overhead footprints for storage fees. So you need to like move it off your property pretty quickly. And if the price is low and the price is very, week to week, then you've suddenly collected it and expected you'll get a certain price and you don't. So that's the trouble with the commodities market.
They have that Recyclopedia thing online, Victoria. Do you use that?
I do, yeah. And there's quite a few things listed on there that they won't take, like aluminum foil and glass bakeware, liners, grill pans. I mean, these are things that especially Manitobans use quite a bit in the summertime. We have a short summer, so we are out grilling all the time. We're having those community get-togethers, and we use tin foil constantly, and it's it's just kind of mind-boggling that this thing that pretty much everyone uses, they won't take.
I wonder what the difference is. Joe, do you have any idea why Alberta and BC would have more expansive recycling facilities than Manitoba? Is it population?
It could be. I have to. I'm ignorant as to all the reasons why that would be. I imagine population density in Lower Mainland BC is high enough that you can actually have some processing going on there, some secondary processing. Whereas I know in Manitoba, I'm not aware of any secondary processing, like where you ship a big bale of collected, separated plastic. I know that you can't get that information very readily. It's not a transparent process. I've heard that a lot is shipped to North Carolina, and I imagine some is shipped to Toronto. But if you think of the footprint, the carbon footprint of moving material by truck that distance, that's a huge cost in that way.
So plastic waste might go from Canada to North Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah. Doesn't seem environmentally sound, does it? 204-780-0893 is the number to call. If you, like Victoria, think it's frustrating that we can't recycle as many things here as we can in other parts of the country. Victoria, if you're still with us, one of the things that bothers me is where there's so many things that we get, and it says where facilities exist.
Correct.
Where facilities exist. So what do you do with your clam shells and all the things that you can't recycle?
Well, like everybody else, I throw them in the trash because I have nowhere to take them.
How much would you support going to a store or a retailer where all the packaging was sustainable, where this plastic was phased out?
That is probably my biggest dream. Having some kind of government subsidy so that the government would set up shops to go get your laundry detergent, your dish detergent, and reusable, vessels that maybe are biodegradable, maybe they're not, but they're definitely recyclable. That's something that we have, and that well, pardon me, not that we have, but that they have in Europe everywhere. And it's such a specialty thing here in Canada, to be part of a business that you can go to and bring your plastic containers and get your laundry detergent, get your dish detergent, get these things that we all use every day, month to month, year to year. And to me, that should be something that the government is going to subsidize, something that they're going to launch across Canada so that we can get this under control and really actually start making the difference. Because right now, there's so much that we just have to put in the trash.
You're absolutely right. Thank you for calling us today.
Thank you.
That's Victoria calling into Radio Noon on YouTube. A couple of our viewers are weighing in as well with their comments, saying it is mind-blowing how much packaging we still use, even for the tiniest things. Joe, what do you think about that?
I agree. It's terrible. If you look at the rate of increase since plastic became a manufacturable item in the 1950s, there's been, if you look at the chart of production increase year by year, it's about 8.5% every year, and there's no sign of it slowing down. And just for terms of reference, about half of all the plastic produced is made for short-term packaging that is garbage within 1 year. Sometimes it's within a few minutes of it being sort of distributed. So we don't show any sign of slowing down. All the production facilities to turn oil or natural gas into plastic have been built and are being built at a faster and faster rate, maintaining this 8.5% annual growth rate. So we double in every 10 years. The amount of plastic produced still is on track for doubling.
And that's mind-blowing when it just keeps going. How hopeful are you that this treaty they're working on will actually be signed in November or be ready to be signed in November, and that we'll be able to tackle it?
Well, I'm not a politician, thank goodness. But it's definitely a political effort because they want to get countries to sign on to it. If you just have two countries who want it and nobody else does, then you have a problem. If you bring something that is so watered down and diluted, it actually has no teeth and no repercussions on plastic production and pollution, then that's not useful either. I know that they invited a whole bunch of industry representatives to this meeting. Same as, COP, whatever COP number they're up to, they bring oil and gas reps who are, lobbyists for their own industry. So they invited those people also to Ottawa this week. So I think once you stack the group in the room so heavily towards those who are making their living out of continued production of plastic, that sort of really limits what you can accomplish.
We have Norma on line one. Norma. Hello, Norma. Thanks for joining us on Radio Noon.
Yes, hello.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to mention the previous caller that mentioned clamshell containers not being recyclable. Well, I'm on the simplyrecycle.ca website.
So am I.
And the plastic clamshell containers are definitely recyclable.
Yeah.
It says this item is accepted in your residential recycling, so please don't throw them out.
Okay. Now, I wasn't sure. You'll notice, too, when you go to that Recyclopedia page, and it's simplyrecycle.ca, it is a really handy resource. It says, what community are you in? And I'm not sure if we heard where Victoria was from.
Oh, that's true.
So it's possible she was from a place in Manitoba that doesn't take them. But in Winnipeg, they are recyclable.
Yes. And the only plastics I know that aren't recyclable are number 6.
Now, Norma, if you, what do you do with your number 6 plastics then?
Well, sadly, those I have to throw out, but fortunately, there's not too many of those.
What would you like to see happen with them? I mean, again, they're going to add up, right? We need change.
Yes, definitely. I wish the manufacturers would definitely, change that. But until then, I guess there's not too much we can do. But
how tricky is it for you when you go shopping to not buy stuff or to find stuff that isn't in plastic?
I'm really trying not to, like those little yogurt tubs, those little individual little yogurt containers. Those are number 6, and now I don't buy those. I just buy yogurt in the bigger tubs.
So there you go. You're looking, you're thinking about it. It's good it's on your mind. Thank you for calling Radio Noon.
Okay, thank you.
Now, we did get a call from Alan, who unfortunately couldn't stick around. He wants to know, and Joe, this takes it off, but can we use old rubber tires to fill potholes? You know everything, Joe. Do you know that?
I talked to Shalaby. There's a professor in engineering here at the university. He's done a ton of work on different kinds of materials to use to kind of put into asphalt. And I think there's been work done with old rubber tires, and he'd be the one to ask, not me. I think you have to, asphalt is a kind of an interesting thing because it has to have enough binding, like it's got to be brittle enough that it doesn't, it doesn't sort of break apart. It doesn't become sticky in the summer, as it gets hot. And it doesn't get too slick and hard and slippery in the winter. And it's a tough material to replicate. So I think the recipes on those are pretty tough. And it's not just, you can put chicken feathers in and away you go. But so I can't really answer that question.
But you did a good job trying. Thanks, Joe.
Go talk to Shalaby.
I will. Joe Ackerman, thanks so much for joining us for this chat. Final thoughts on the need to be sustainable.
Okay, you're welcome. It's been an enjoyment.
Any final thoughts for us? You've got 30 seconds. What do you want to say to Manitobans about sustainability?
If I always encourage people to save their plastic for a given period of time. Don't throw it out. Wash it, dry it, and put it in a corner of your kitchen.
Why?
Because then you will share in Mother Nature's pain of increased having to look after it. Like we're so used to throwing things away and getting them out of our field of vision, but it doesn't really go away. So if you kind of, for a limited period of time, I did it for a year, and I learned a lot about plastic in that year. So I encourage people to do that.
Joe Ackerman, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Joe runs the Sustainability in Action facility at the University of Manitoba. Chloe Friesen, that sounds like such a cool place. I think you and I should go visit it sometime.
It rhymes.
It does. Sustainability in Action facility.
Kind of. It's a near rhyme.
It's a near.
But it sounds
close.
very fun to say.
I promoted that Up to Speed is hosted by Faith Fundal, but of course Faith Fundal was on the morning show.
It's musical chairs.
So
here at
Chloe
CBC Manitoba.
Friesen, you're so multi-talented. You are hosting today.
I am. I'm really excited about what we're talking about today on the show. So from the murals of Transcona to the secrets of South Osborne. Get ready to explore Winnipeg in a way that you haven't seen before. We're going to hear details of this year's Jane's Walk Winnipeg Tours.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
This is something I've never participated in before, but I feel like now I have to.
Jane's Walks are a thing. They're very cool. I've never been on one either. But
no, there's so much to learn about your own city. I think we often forget that there is history about the place we live that we don't know.
Yeah.
So I love being a tourist in my own city. So
good for you.
Yeah, I think I got to try it out.
All right. We'll be listening.
Sounds good.
Chloe Friesen is normally the director of Up to Speed, and today she's also hosting. So thank you, Chloe. And that'll start at 3 o'clock today, run until 6 p.m. Thank you for being with us for Radio Noon today. Thank you to our special guest, Joe Ackerman. Thanks so much to Travis Peterson taking care of YouTube for us. Daniel Friesen making everything work technically. Our director, Wendy Parker, thank you. Our show producer is Nellie Gonzalez, and senior producer of audio is Leif Larson. The most important people on our team are you. So thanks for listening, and thanks for calling in, too. Keep those ideas coming and those thoughts coming. Remember, you can call us anytime, 788-3797. Just leave a message. I'm Janet Stewart. You're listening to CBC Radio 1, and up next, it's Writers and Company. Have a great day.